Hello everyone. Today's lesson will be
the most extreme lesson ever!
Okay, that's a lie. I really just have no idea how else to make this shit exciting. Hey, it's Mike with Become the Night, and welcome to this episode of Mike. The fuck is this? I know you're probably wondering where my whiskey went. It's 10:30 in the morning right now. This is my cup of tea, and I'm gonna drink it as much as I damn well please. So let's begin. I'm sure those of you who are familiar with my Song Suggestion Friday videos have heard me say the word melody more times than you would care to. Melody. Now, while most people can listen to a song and instinctually know what the melody is, you don't really understand something unless you can break it down into its most basic parts. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at what is melody. For those of you who might need some refreshers, there'll be a link around the screen somewhere, I forget which side of the screen that comes on, to my Music Theory 101 video, which, God, that is from a much cringier time, and you can get refreshed on some of the terms. Let's begin. There are a number of different definitions for melody, so I just kind of pulled pieces from the ones that I liked and threw them together in this kind of flowy monster of a definition. Melody has these three characteristics. 1, a linear succession of singular musical tones that is perceived as one entity. 2, combination of pitch and rhythm. 3, the principal part or foreground of our piece. So what does each of these mean? Let's break it down. I assume linear succession of singular tones is self-explanatory, so let's examine what we mean by one entity. When we say our succession of notes is perceived as one entity, we mean it is perceived as having one starting point and one end point. Everything in between those 2 points is our melodic idea or phrase. This one entity or phrase should evoke a thought or emotion. And if everything is done correctly, it should not include boredom or contempt for your composer. Melodic phrases can come in a variety of different lengths. Let's take a look at a couple examples. Certainly some of this is open to interpretation. After all, it is how it is perceived. Most commonly, we can perceive a rest note or an elongated note as the end of our phrase. Many phrases in the same songs will share similar rhythms or similar tones, and this also assists us in knowing when a new phrase has begun. A perfect example of this is actually the worst song ever made, One Night at a Time.
I'm not yours and baby, you're not mine. We've got something and it sure is fine.
Oh God. Holy fuck, I'm sorry. There was so much mediocrity in the room I couldn't even breathe. The rest note at the end of our phrase lets us know that this phrase is complete, while the similar rhythm and contour of the following notes clues us in that this is the beginning of our next phrase. You can distinctly see where the phrases begin and end. One of the reasons why it can be so difficult for some listeners to grasp onto shred players is because it can be very difficult to determine where does a phrase end, where does it start, what's even happening in between. Speed Metal Messiah is a perfect example. Counting this song as a 4/4 and at approximately 152 beats per minute, or I would call these two-measure phrases. What clued me in was how each phrase began the same, but if you're an unpracticed or unprepared listener, you might just miss it. Or I could just be making all of this up to sound smarter than what I really am, but you'll never know. That pretty much sums up phrases. Let's move on. As already stated, melody is a combination of both pitch and rhythm. The tones and rhythms that you choose will dictate what your phrase is saying. Tones can be examined in relation to the chords behind them or in relation to each other. To loosely explain, if the notes in our melody fall on the notes in the chords behind them, we call that consonant. If they fall on notes that do not belong in the chords that are falling behind them, we call that dissonant. Notes that move in a stepwise motion in seconds are considered conjunctive. An example. Notes that move in larger intervals than seconds we call disjunctive. Most melodies are a combination of both of these properties. We can also examine the rhythm of our melody, which is the length or absence of notes. The longer we hold a note, typically the more significance we give it in the melody. But in other cases, how the note's rhythm contrasts with the rest of the piece and the rest of the notes in the melody dictates how much significance it does or doesn't have. Where we focus the beat of the melody versus the beat of the song can be analyzed as well. Melodies that are emphasized on the beat are called on beat. Melodies that are emphasized off the beat are called syncopated. That is how pitch and rhythm play into our melody. And now for the last part. There can be many phrases using pitch and rhythm in the same song, so why aren't all of those considered the melody as well? That is because of our last characteristic of melody. It needs to be in the foreground. Being in the foreground simply means it is the most noticeable part of our song. Think of melody as that cool kid in school who still smoked weed and wasn't a douchebag unless he was David Lee Roth. What makes something sound more in the foreground or in the background is a combination of a bunch of the aspects we just looked at. But more importantly is loudness and timbre. The melody is typically the loudest part of our piece, giving it ample dynamic contrast with the rest of the parts in the song so it sticks out more. The timbre of instruments that typically play melody have primary frequencies in the middle range, or typically somewhere between 700 Hz and 5000 Hz. The most common form of delivering a melody actually is from the voice, and given it's usually the only instrument providing us semantic information or words, it actually assists in making it stick out more. Other common instruments that play melody: guitar, saxophone, piano, flute, trumpet, I mean the list goes on. The key idea is making sure that the timbre and the loudness make it separate from the rest of the piece. I think that about covers everything. Awesome, time to get smashed. If you did find this video helpful and you'd like possibly more videos like this, let me know in the comments below. And if you like what I do on this channel, please go to my Patreon, link is in the description. I do paid song critiques. If you are interested, email me at becomethenight@gmail.com. And you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at becomethenight. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. Rock on!